Wohlford and Billy Martin, and the Yankees want the bat. Look at Martin.
Well, what they're talking about, Frank, is that he's got too much fine tar, and you've got to have a certain amount of distance from the trademark of the bat and the fine tar.
And Nettles is leaving the field as if the game is over. Albies just coming in.
I'm not sure. They might have a legitimate gripe. They might be going to call George Brett out.
Well, the Yankees win. He's out.
Yes,
Brett is out. Look at this. Brett is out. And
team is mad.
He is out and having to be forcibly restrained from hitting plate umpire Tim McClellan.
And welcome back to another episode of Too Much Pod Tar, as this is going to be another episode of our 30 Teams and 30 Pods series that we've been doing. And this will be now the Mariners, onto the Mariners. And my guest on today is going to be Nick Tucker, and he writes for the Diamond Digest, writes some Mariners on that site. So thanks for coming on, Nick.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. And so the Mariners obviously still in the rebuild, still trying to get back to the postseason, get back to being the team that can make some things happen. How did you feel about this last season? Did you think they're headed in the right direction?
Yeah, I feel good about what the Mariners are doing these days. I mean, ultimately, it's kind of hard to feel good about a team that almost lost 100 games.
Yeah.
They did 94 losses this season and this and that, but there was a lot of this season, next season, and possibly even parts of 2021 are just kind of getting geared up for the next batch of players that they spent most of 2019 and 2018 really adding to and cultivating and trying to create this core and this system of players that's going to be ready to come up and really bring Seattle baseball back to its winning ways from the late 90s and the early 2000s.
Yeah, right. And to help, try to keep that core that they have there, they just today on Friday they did avoid arbitration with Mitch Haniger, Malik Smith, and Sam Tuivailala.
Tuivailala. That one's a tough one.
It's like Tua from Alabama. I'm not going to. It's even worse.
I could never get that one either. I always have to read that one phonetically a few times.
Yeah, I think it's like Tua Tagovailoa. I don't think it's right, but
it's something. I'm not looking at it, so I couldn't tell you right now.
Yeah, that's like.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, that's like with Giannis too from the Bucks. Giannis,
yeah.
I can't even do it without stuttering over it.
I really can't. That's one of those just some of those names you can't do the first try.
Yeah.
Those take practice.
Definitely.
Yeah, Mariners today re-signed avoided arbitration with Mitch Haniger, which I really liked. Just barely over $3 million for that. He's coming off injury season this year. He ruptured a testicle in an at-bat early on this season, and then just never came off the shelf, was never going to be healthy enough to return.
Right.
And just an absolute just like knee-crossing injury too. If you go back and watch the video of it, it's interesting too, because there's like some speculation that he fouled 2 balls off that area of his body in that game, and there's some speculation that the injury came like actually from the first one, and then he did it a second time and was like, okay, we're done for the day.
Yeah, that's got to be the worst kind of injury you can get, like.
And then he just decided to Iron Man it out for another at bat and did it again, because of course that's the nature of baseball, is once you don't want something to happen, then it happens again.
Yeah, that's true. Like, just even like thinking about it, like it hurts.
Yeah, it's awful. I don't recommend watching the video if you can avoid it.
Yeah.
It's not fun to watch. It's like watching Buster Posey break his back again. It's just like I didn't really want to see that today.
No.
And then the other one they re-signed, they got Malik Smith off arbitration as well for, I think it was like 2.6 or something like that, which, move on. I kind of saw coming. They kind of entered the offseason this year sort of hesitantly looking to move him. There was some teams out there that were thinking about some outfield help, but Malik's isn't coming off an exceptionally great season. He spent some time and got sent down to AAA to try and refine his swing. Just wasn't hitting very well, wasn't seeing a whole lot of pitches, not walking a whole lot.
Yeah.
And, when he was on base, he was doing just fine. He's still a good base runner. He did lead the major leagues in caught stealing this year, but he also led the leagues in stolen bases. So it's a little bit of give and take there. And
yeah,
it seemed like at some point in the season, the organization they took away his green light a little bit and just said, you can run, but we'll go ahead and give you that sign. And then it that was around mid-season, June, July kind of area. That was after he came back from AAA, and when they were giving him the green light, he was actually running really well, and then they gave it back to him, and he just kept on running. When him and D. Gordon were healthy and on the team at the same time, they were a nightmare to have on the bases at the same time, because often it was Malik's would lead off and D would hit second lead off in the 9 hole, and so if they were on base together, it was a nightmare.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun.
If they can just consistently get on base, there'll be a nightmare all the time on base, because they have exceptional speed, but just they can't get on base as much.
Yeah, and it was one of those things too. It was interesting to watch the way, because there's 2 massive speedsters on this one team that really didn't have any grand aspirations for this season, so they were just kind of letting their players play their brand of baseball a little bit more than maybe some of the more competitive teams you might see. So they were there weren't very many teams in Major League Baseball running a whole lot this year. They didn't really want to jeopardize losing their base runners so that their mashers could come in and hit that juiced ball out of the stadium and score an extra run.
Yeah, that's the way the game's been going the last couple of years. Even with my team's the Yankees, and it's with Brett Gardner used to steal bases a lot more, but now he doesn't really do it at all, because he wants to protect Judge, and they still want him on base when Judge is up, and Stanton and Sanchez, all the big guys.
I mean, even LeMahieu's a competent base runner, can get down the line if you really need him to, but he didn't run at all last season, if I remember correctly.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, just the way that the game's going, everybody wants more power, and you don't really see much of the small ball anymore. Nobody really even bunts anymore too. And
it's especially last season with the lack of base running, it was just like some of the major speedsters weren't healthy all year. Like Billy Hamilton went down for a good portion in the season really early. That was back when the Mariners were on their 13-2 run, and Billy Hamilton kind of knocked himself out trying to catch a deep fly ball off of Mitch Haniger's bat, actually, and ended up being down for a while. D. Gordon was up and down. He had some knee problems were keeping him down for a lot of the season. So it was a combination of the game wasn't favoring running, and then some of the better runners just weren't really around.
Right. Yeah, so jumping into some, kind of back into the rebuild, they have a pretty promising future. I think if their prospects can pan out, and their top prospect Jared Kelenic he's going to be exciting. I think he's got a lot of potential there.
Yeah, Jared Kelenic is a lot of fun. He's super exciting. I remember when that trade went through. Sorry, Mets fans, but we're going to talk about this one. But when that trade went through that sent Robinson Cano and Edwin Diaz over to Queens, and there was that initial report that came out that because we got Kelenic and Justin Dunn and Anthony Swarzak and Jay Bruce and someone else who I can't get to the top of my head right now, but the initial report had it that Jeff McNeil was going to be involved in that trade too, and I was just
Oof.
My Lord, what a trade that would have been if that had actually gone through. But even as it is, what an excellent trade, because Jared Kelenic is a tremendous acquisition. He really blossomed very well in our minor league systems. Really good. He finished the season at Double-A Arkansas, if I remember correctly, and I mean, just hit really, really well. It's really easy to follow, especially these days, because so much of Mariners fan attention is posited towards the minor leagues.
Right.
It's gotten a lot easier to follow a lot of those teams. There's one dedicated Twitter account that's absolutely incredible called Mariners Miners that's always updating you on big things happening with big prospects, big games going on at different levels. So he really devoted himself to making sure we knew a lot about every time Jared Kelenic hit a dinger or made a really awesome diving catch out in right field somewhere. It was always really cool to see. And then guys like Julio Rodriguez too, who a lot of people were really high on before the season started, and a good amount of us didn't know a whole lot about him. He was, playing Dominican ball and this and that. But we hadn't really seen a whole lot of him. He was only 18 years old. He just recently turned 19. And then he entered the system proper, was playing with West Virginia at low A, and was just absolutely dominating. And it was so fun to see those updates come across. And during spring training too, you got to see a good look at these guys. A lot of them got spring training invites, so Jared was there and got to meet a bunch of guys, especially some of the more established Mariners prospects, names you might have heard of, like Kyle Lewis, who came up late in 2018, Evan White, who signed his extension here in the offseason, guys like that, and just seeing them interact with each other and realizing it's like, oh, that is the future staring right down the barrel at us, and we can't wait to have it up here in Seattle proper.
Yeah, I always love looking at prospects. It's an exciting thing to see them watch them grow and make their way up to the majors.
And sometimes it can be such taboo talk, especially in Seattle, to genuinely get excited about prospects, because we've had prospects in the past that just didn't pan out the way we wanted to. Dustin Ackley, Mike Zunino are prime examples of guys we had who we were supposed to get super excited about, and then it just didn't work out that way. Danny Holton, guys like that. And but the difference between those years back in the past when we had these one or two prospects that might be coming up at some point, and then this massive batch of prospects that has taken the Mariners farm system from one of the worst farm systems in the league before the 2018 season started to at least top 5, or at least top 10, argument for top 5 farm system it's remarkable, the change that happened in just a little less than a calendar year.
Right. Yeah. What are your thoughts on Justice Sheffield? Because I just want to mention him because I thought he was going to end up panning out for the Yankees, but then when they traded him, I was like, oh. But then it kind of looks like the Yankees have won that trade so far, at least, because he hasn't really panned out like I thought he would.
I like the look of that trade, especially when it came through. I was excited to have Justice added. I knew the Yankees were really high on him. And it made me a little nervous that they were willing to part with him. It was kind of one of those things that, what do you know about this guy that maybe the Mariners don't, or that I don't? Yeah. That being said, I definitely think I actually got to see one of Justice's starts early this season when he was starting late. It was either late August or September, and I was at the game. And he got rocked around a little bit. He didn't look rattled at any point, though. If I remember, he gave up maybe 3 runs or something like that in his first 2 innings, and didn't last very long in the game. He threw a lot of pitches. But the thing that stood out to me was he never really looked rattled. Like, he wasn't locating. It didn't seem like he had his best velocity and his best movement, especially on his changeup. But he just, it looked like he was settled down to work the whole time, and so his poise really stood out to me more than anything. And I don't think the Mariners brought him up in the waning months of the season, hoping that he would blow everybody's hair back.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need him to advance that quickly. He's still got a lot of pure potential in him to be a big guy. But I do like the look of Justice. I hope he gets some more playing time, especially this year. I don't know where he'll start the season.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Mariners rotation is such a question this year, but it could well be that he just starts with the big club and ends up seeing a good amount of major league innings this year. So I'd be interested to see how that would work out.
Yeah, I'll be definitely keeping a close eye on that too, because I'm interested to see how the trade ends up working out. Like with James Paxton, he's he kind of had an up and down season last year, but finished strong. So right now it looks like the Yankees have gotten more of the advantage with the trade, but I would still like to see him succeed with the Mariners, like trying to kind of like a win-win situation for both teams.
I'd love to see Justice succeed with the Mariners, but it's weird to say, and might sound a little weird, but I really do would love to see James continue to succeed, especially in New York. He was so special to a lot of Mariners fans here. We loved him so much. We had I don't know if you ever knew what it was, but the Maple Grove fan section that was out way up in the left field bleachers over by the tracks for the stadium roof.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just, it started out super small, but it was just this little fan section devoted to rooting for him. And it was a lot of fun, and it got a lot of other, maybe the more casual fans' attention of just like, oh, he's got all these devoted fans, he must be really special. And then that just kind of built outward, and he became really special to a lot of fans here, and we all really liked him a lot. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
Especially, it was all really exciting when he threw his no-hitter on his home soil in Toronto. That was really, really cool, and it really sucked to see him go. I knew he was on the block, and I had kind of prepared myself to see that move made, but it didn't make it feel any better when it actually happened. But the return of Sheffield wasn't something I turned my nose up at all.
Yeah.
That's also not the only Yankees pitcher that we've gotten, Yankees prospect pitcher that we've gotten recently. The Edwin Encarnacion trade that happened early in 2019 sent Juan Then over to us. And I was kind of excited about that at first. I didn't really know who he was at first, and I kind of took a dive into his peripheral numbers and was like, oh, this guy could be really good at some point. I find myself really high on Juan Then.
Yeah, he's got potential for sure. And Encarnacion, he ended up playing pretty well for the Yankees, but he just never got those big numbers in the postseason. He struggled a lot. So it's like, I don't know.
I remember thinking it was almost an odd time for that trade to go through, and I had the Yankees as a possible landing spot for Edwin Encarnacion when he was on the blog. I mean, had been talking about the Mariners really wanted to move at least one or two of those first basemen. I mean, they started the season with Jay Bruce and Edwin Encarnacion and Daniel Vogelbach all on the team, and they all had some really hot starts to the season. Jay Bruce was leading the majors in home runs for a good period there, and he wasn't even swinging every day. He was hitting like a $190 or just hovering around the Mendoza line, but he was leading the league in home runs so inexplicably.
Yeah.
And then he went off to Philadelphia,
Mm-hmm.
and then Edwin hung around for a little longer, kept racking up the home runs too at a pretty prodigious rate, and then he moved off too, and Vogie finally got full time.
Yeah. Where do you think Edwin's going to go this year? Because he's still on the free agent block now.
I'm not entirely. It's weird. It almost seems cliche to say it, but I kind of feel like he might end up with like one of his former teams.
Mm.
Like I think the Blue Jays would like to have him back.
Yeah,
in some way. That'd be really cool. That'd be fun to watch too. Blue Jays fans loved him.
Yeah.
Having the Parrot back in Toronto would be a sight to see. The fans would love that. I don't know how the organization would feel about that, but
Yeah, I don't know.
There's so many teams that could be in the market for a first baseman because it's a pretty weak position right now. So it'd be interesting to see ultimately what that market even looks like, and does he sign before someone like Donaldson, and how does that affect that kind of market, even though they're opposite ends of the infield. But
yeah, it'll be something to keep an eye on. Definitely, I think definitely think Donaldson will be signed before him because, well, maybe not. I don't know. It's just, I think just the way this offseason's gone, the bigger guys are going to go first.
yeah, well, it's hard. It's so hard to predict. I mean, it's always been hard to predict the free agent market, but given what happened last year with Machado and Harper, and then Keuchel and Kimbrel not even signing until mid-season, I don't think it's ever been harder to predict the free agent market and when someone will sign and who they will sign with. It is, especially with so many teams that really seem like they want to get involved in being competitive. You got the White Sox that are jumping on everything that they can get their hands on with the advent of the Indians seemingly not wanting to compete anymore.
Yeah.
The Braves, the Twins, all these teams that really just they want to be as competitive as possible. Really interesting. It's thinned out the market in a really interesting way that I don't think has happened in a while.
Yeah, this offseason's been like almost the opposite of last offseason. Just the way things have moved and like a quick pace.
It was torrid. We had players signing before the winter meetings even started, which I can't remember the last time that happened. It was amazing.
Wow. Yeah, it was. Never thought Cole was going to sign that soon.
Me neither. I really thought the sweepstakes for him would last longer, but apparently Scott Boras just decided he was going to make all of his money in one big lump and then chill out for the rest of the offseason. So good for Boras.
Definitely. He made, what did he make? Almost $1 billion, I think.
He signed, it was something like $880 million worth of just Major League Baseball contracts in a weekend.
Yeah.
That's absolutely ridiculous.
It's crazy. I'd like to have his job.
I don't think I would.
No.
I mean, I'd be cool to have his money, but to have his job, like to represent that many people, I don't need that kind of responsibility in my life.
Another thing I was going to mention here was now King Felix is probably pitching his last season for the Mariners. What are your thoughts on him? And did you like him during his career? He was obviously a fan favorite during the whole career. So
I loved Felix his whole career. The Maple Grove was less known, but the King's Court was quite well known.
Mm-hmm.
And I just recently counted all my King's Court shirts. I have 8 of them.
Wow.
I went to at least 8 King's Courts. I don't know if maybe I lost a shirt here or there or something like that, but I love the King's Court, and it was so much fun. It was one of the best fan experiences, but it was getting to go there and devote yourself to rooting for the team, obviously, because the team's on the field, but rooting for Felix was so much fun, and especially knowing that he really fed off the energy of the King's Court so much. Like, he would always talk about how valuable that was to him pitching at home, and because he was such an emotional pitcher, and when you give someone who plays with that much emotion, so much emotion to feed off of, and you know that you're a part of that, it made that whole thing really special. But Felix was is easily one of my all-time favorite Mariners, and there's a long list of all-time favorite Mariners. I mean, we are not the most successful franchise, but I'll be damned if we don't have players that are super worth loving, and Felix was just one of those guys. His season this season, and even the last couple years when the decline started becoming so much more obvious. It was so easy to see. It was really painful to watch. I went to at least, one or two Kings courts during the decline, and it was still a lot of fun, but there was definitely that acknowledgement of this isn't the same as it's been in the past.
Yeah.
And I got to go to his last Kings court, his last start at home, which was easily the most emotional baseball game I've ever been to, and it's not particularly close. I've been to some really cool baseball games. I saw Philip Humber's perfect game live, but I would trade that in a heartbeat to be in that stadium again and watch him, just pitch with his heart on his sleeve.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't a great start. Pretty sure we lost the game, but didn't matter. It was Felix. He's a legend here. He's so beloved here. It's gonna hurt a great deal to see him, put on like a Marlins jersey or something like that and pitch next season, because I know he wants to keep pitching so bad, and I wish it could have been here. The animosity that ended up growing between Felix and the organization towards the latter years of his career here was a shame. It was a big shame. It's a shame his career, and it's a shame his prime ended so soon. It's easy to forget that he's still honest. He's pretty young. He's really not that old. There's just so much miles on his arm. He's been in the league for 14 years. He's only 33, but he's got almost 3,000 innings on his arm.
Yeah, it'll definitely end up somewhere, but probably be more of like a rebuilding team or somewhere like that.
America's
right.
As Mayor Mike Bloomberg helped
probably
like
you said, like the Marlins, maybe something like that.
Marlins. There was some people suggesting maybe the Astros would take a flyer on him and see what they can do with their rampant pitching development. But there's kind of the question of how much is he willing to listen to stuff like that. So I'm not entirely sure if he would even want to go to an Astros team like that. I mean, I think he would want to go to a team where he could compete.
Yeah.
Because my God, does he deserve to pitch in the playoffs in some capacity?
Yeah, definitely.
There was so many years spent hoping the Mariners could do just enough to get him a start in a wild card game in Seattle with a Kings court in the left field corner.
Mm.
Seattle baseball fans are chomping at the bit to buy tickets for a playoff game, but if it had been Felix starting, it would have been unreal.
Yeah.
Remember that wild card game with it was Reds Pirates, and it was in Pittsburgh, and Johnny Cueto was pitching, and the Pirates fans were so loud they made Cueto drop the ball.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Always imagine it would have been like that.
Yeah.
It's a shame to see him go. It is. I mean, he won a Cy Young here. He should have won 2 Cy Youngs, by the way. Corey Kluber can get the hell out of here with his Cy Young as far as I'm concerned. But he's a 2-time ERA guy. He went to 6 All-Star games. He's a legend here.
Yeah, so moving on to like kind of predicting where the Mariners, like when their rebuild ends, when do you think they're going to be, back contending for a spot?
It's hard to say for sure. Jerry Dipoto, when they did the press conference after the 2018 season, and Jerry Dipoto famously announced the step back. They didn't want to refer to it as a rebuild, so they called it a step back or a reimagining of the Mariners. That was a fun Seattle sports meme for a little bit, was reimagining. But he gave the soft timeline of 2021, 2022 kind of era to bring back. Interesting thing about the rebuild, something that a lot of people might not realize about the Seattle Mariners that this is actually the first time in their whole existence that they've ever done anything like this, that they've ever done a rebuild. And a lot of people don't really believe that or understand that. And you look at this team that hasn't been to a playoff since 2001 and has had 200 lost seasons in that time frame in 2008 and 2010 when they lost 101 games each. And you think, how can a team that's been so bad for so long never have actually rebuilt? But every single year in the last 18 years is with the exception of 2019, has genuinely been this team trying their hardest to get to the playoffs and just not managing to do it. So it's hard to realistically think, to guess how quickly this team can turn it around. But I think that just the fact that I mentioned it earlier, but how quickly Jerry Dipoto turned just an absolute bottom tier farm system into one of the better farm systems in the league with, it was 2 or 3 top 100 prospects. You've got guys waiting in the wings that are just itching to get onto the big club. Evan White signed a 6-year contract extension. He hasn't even broken major league club yet, but he's the first baseman of the future. The Mariners know it. He knows it. Defensive wizard at first base, with a modest bat to come with it, but I'm sure that'll continue to develop further. Kid hits the ball real hard. You got guys like Jake Fraley, center fielder, who spent some time with the big club but was kind of hindered by injuries a little bit, who's ready to come up and play big. I don't know how much time he's going to get with the Mariners settling on arbitration with Malix, so that'll be interesting. There's not a lot of outfield space right now.
No.
Him to come up, but especially with Kyle Lewis is probably the guy that you really want to get the bulk of the playing time over Fraley just a little bit. And Kyle Lewis probably spent a good amount of time playing left field this year after he came up and made the Cincinnati Reds hate their entire existence for 3 games late in the season.
Yeah.
So if I was going to project it out where this team can be, you've got so many good players, so many good pitchers. Logan Gilbert, Sam Delaplane is in Double-A. He's an excellent relief prospect. George Kirby, our first round pick from this last draft, who's playing, and I don't know where he's going to start this season, but he was in Everett this year with the Aqua Sox and had put up really good numbers in very short amount of innings, but looked really, really good doing it. I want to say the Mariners are going to be a lot of fun to watch in like the second half of 2021 when some of these guys start coming up. Like I imagine Kalanick is going to be really upset with himself if he hasn't broken the big club at that point.
Yeah.
He's really looking forward to it. I think you'll see Julio Rodriguez might torch his way up the minors really, really quickly if he continues on the trend that he's on. He's one of those guys that he's so young. He's 19 years old, but he has such strong leadership qualities. You hear a lot from some of the younger players that are down there that talk about what a leadership presence that he has for even a great deal of the older prospects that are there. And we're so many people in the organization and even the national media, even Jeff Passan named him in one of the prospects to watch for 2019. I think you'll see some of those guys start to come up, and this team will raise eyebrows in 2021, and then I think things might start getting interesting in 2022. It'll be interesting to see what the AL West looks like at that point. Is the only hitch in the wagon for me as far as I'm concerned. I mean, by that time, the Angels won't be handicapped by a Albert Pujols contract anymore. They'll still have Anthony Rendon, and Mike Trout will continue being Mike Trout for the foreseeable forever.
Yeah.
The Oakland A's are always it's always hard to figure out what they're doing, but somehow they always find a way to win at least 85 games and contend for a wild card spot. So, and I hate contending with the A's because Mariners and the A's, no matter how much better one team is than the other, they always play close games. each other. They're always fun games to watch at the end of the day. I mean, even if the season records against each other, even if one's lopsided, that doesn't tell the whole story.
Mm-hmm.
The team to watch, though, especially given what's going on this offseason, is how are the Astros going to look next year, 2 years, 3 years from now?
Yeah, it's good. The other thing that's interesting is some of the rule changes that Manfred's put in for this season. With the 3 batter minimum, like I don't know, that's gonna be interesting with the seeing like if it like it's probably gonna like handicap some of the managers, because like you can't take it if a pitcher comes in for 1 batter and it's like bases loaded or something and he gives up the grand slam. It's like, okay, you can't take him out now. You have to leave him in for 2 more batters. It's like that's gonna be kind of interesting.
It'd be interesting to me to see, like, I don't have such a problem with the 3 batter minimum being instituted. It didn't bother me strictly. I know one of my friends was a pitcher growing up, and that rule came across, and he was like, good, screw lefty specialists. Like, he was excited about the rule change, and I didn't have such a hard opinion either way, but I remember I wasn't so much interested to see how coaches change how they manage their bullpen, but I wonder if it changes how coaches set up their lineups, knowing that there's, if there's going to be a lefty coming in to face 1 batter, are they just going to, how harder, especially, if a certain team had a former lefty specialist on it and they know they can't be used that way anymore, they have to face 3 batters every single time. How many righties are they going to try and get in between and behind every one of their right-handed batters in their lineup? Like, do they change their lineup to funnel out the left-handed reliever as much as possible with the advent of this rule? I don't know if they'll think about it nearly as hard as I've thought about it. I don't know if it'll change the game very much, but I thought it was interesting to think about.
Yeah, it's definitely something interesting to keep an eye on, see how it pans out. I don't know if it's going to change it that much for some, especially for some teams, because there's some teams that don't really use like lefty specialists as much. They put them in the game and they stay in there for a couple of hours anyway, so it's might not change it too much.
Yeah, it probably won't. It won't. I don't think it will change the game that much. I think a lot of the people that were super against this rule were overreacting a little bit. Like, I see where they're coming from. I didn't find myself viewing it that way, so I will see. I don't think it's gonna be very glaringly obvious to most people that this is a rule that's been enacted, unless I'll be interested to see if like a manager forgets and goes to change a pitcher after 1 batter and the umpire has to be like, no, can't do that.
Yeah. The one rule that if they ever put in place, I would really hate it if they end up actually like implementing a pitch clock. Is like I wouldn't like that at all, because it's like that's part of the game. It's like it's been that, like that's what you use it as, like kind of like chess. You stay like the pitcher stands there for a while and like makes the batter think more. Like even if it's taking a while, like I like that. Like that's part of the baseball. Like
yeah.
I don't
Absolutely.
give a shit. Like, I don't give a shit about like pace of play and all that crap. Like, real fans, true baseball fans, don't care how long a baseball game is. Especially like when you're actually at the game, you want to be there as long as possible, because it's like it's fun to be there for that long amount of time.
I find the idea of a pitch clock to be not offensive. That the thing that Manfred has proposed that I find to be offensive is removing 40 of the minor league baseball teams. The pitch clock one I think that's a terrible idea for baseball.
Yeah. There was another one where they tried it in one of these independent leagues. It was like you could steal first base or something. Like, what the hell was that? Like
that one I just thought was goofy. Is just like, that was them just being like, well, what else can we think about? Like, someone proposed that in like a focus group, and they were like, that's not a bad idea.
Yes. But what, I don't even know what it even was. Like, if the If the pitch like goes back to the backstop, you can just run to first or something.
Yeah, something like that. It was if first base is empty, and you feel that if you feel that you can reach first base before the catcher can throw you out at first base or something like that, then you can take the base. I don't know if that's exactly what it was. I could be way off, but
no matter what it is, it's stupid. Like
it was a goofy rule regardless, for sure.
Yeah, definitely would never end up being in the majors.
I would hope not. I think that would it would be too gimmicky.
Yeah, it wouldn't make.
That's the kind of thing that you would think you would see in like the XFL equivalent of the MLB.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, XFL is going to be starting up soon, I think, right?
Yeah, they're running a very aggressive Twitter marketing campaign right now.
Yeah, I have to go check that out. I haven't seen any of that.
Go check out the XFL Twitter account if you're listening to this.
Yeah. I'm kind of excited to see what happens there, how it goes.
I am too. I didn't remember the XFL. I was pretty young when it first came around, so I didn't remember any of that. But I did, really enjoy watching watching old footage of it and reading old stuff about it, and just how absolutely bonkers wild it was, and being like, that would have been really interesting to see in real time. If I knew about sports what I know now, oh boy, that would have been a lot of fun.
And I'm gonna be keeping an eye on the one former Penn State quarterback. I'm a big Penn State fan. What's his name? I forget what the hell was his name? He was quarterback for the Raiders. I forget his name. How the hell? Raiders Penn State. Oh, Matt McGloin. That's who it is.
Aha.
Yeah, he got drafted by one of the teams. So I'm actually no, was it I think it was actually CFL he got drafted. Well, no, was it XFL? I'm gonna look it up right now.
I'm gonna be interested to see how many CFL guys might defect to XFL. I think might be an interesting thing, and I don't think it'll happen nearly as much as the NFL, because so many of these guys have been playing football for the express purpose of playing in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think they'll just flip the switch and go over to the XFL, especially because there's not a whole lot of labor tension in the NFL right now. So
yeah, oh yeah, McGloin got drafted by the New York Guardians of the XFL. See how he does. Like I always followed him after he got drafted. He was undrafted. After he was signed by the Raiders, I was following him there. I was hoping he was gonna do something good, but never really got much of a chance. So see what he does in the XFL.
I feel bad because I went to look at the Seattle XFL roster, and I briefly forgot the name of the Seattle XFL team, and then I remembered it's the Dragons. The fact that I had to think about it for a second. I don't recognize any of these names on here. Goodness.
Oh man. When does it officially start? I don't even know.
I don't know. I should take a look into that. I am going to be watching it probably out of the corner of my eye or something like that. It won't be forefront on anything I'm doing though, but I am interested in it.
Starts next month, February 8th. So I guess it'll be right after the Super Bowl then.
Maybe I'll throw a viewing party, have a bunch of people over.
Yeah, why not? Have a Super Bowl party, and then the week after have a XFL party.
Get a bunch of cheap beer.
Yeah.
Wear our rattiest jerseys.
Natty Light.
It's rainier around here, but yeah.
Oh. All right, enough. I guess that's enough on the XFL for now.
And we got off track there.
Yeah, that's what.
Sorry, baseball fans.
That's what we do in this pod, though. We just go and ramble about other stuff that makes no sense for this pod. It'd be great though if you I wouldn't mind, making this a all sport pod either, to kind of branch out, but
touch on a bunch of little stuff.
Yeah, but for right now it's mainly baseball, but we still kind of branch off and talk about other stuff sometimes.
All baseball all the time, because that's what the people want.
All right, so guess that'll be it for this pod. Unless you want to mention anything else with the Mariners next season, or moving forward into their rebuild.
If you're interested at all in following what's going on with the Mariners these days, if you're listening to this and are kind of interested in knowing a little bit more about what the Mariners are doing, especially at the lower levels, the kind of players that you can expect to see in the future, definitely give a follow to at MILB Mariners. It's the Mariners Minors account, who is constantly updating during the season with player updates, team updates, letting you know notable player lines from the given day, let you know what their season has looked like so far. They do very good work. They're very busy during the season. I have no idea who they are, but they are an absolute champion of Mariners fandom. To that end, Mariners this season, especially given the Angels' clear desire to finally get Mike Trout back to the playoffs, the Texas Rangers also seemingly just wanting to add some things and refuse to be completely left in the dust. Probably looking at a nice, solid 5th place finish for the Mariners this year. I think some things will improve for the Mariners from last year. I didn't really talk about it a whole lot, but the Mariners had really, really bad defense this year.
Yeah.
Malik Smith he's very fast, but he doesn't run the best routes, and he doesn't have the best glove in center field. So there's that. We did offload Omar Narvaez to the NL Central Seattle Mariners, otherwise known as the Milwaukee Brewers. And he was not an exceptionally good defensive catcher, but we have Tom Murphy now, so that's good. We also got Cal Raleigh down in Double-A, who hits a ton and is a super devoted defensive catcher, so that'll be really exciting to watch. He's one of those guys that hopefully come up in maybe 2021, 2022 and really start to get a feel for the major league rotation. Would be a lot of fun to see. Jerry Dipoto, as always, is an interesting general manager to watch. Constantly on the phone. Although he kept true to his word. He did say before the beginning of this season that he was not going to be nearly as busy as he has been in recent years, and he did not lie. So it's been somewhat quiet from the Mariners front office this year, and I think there was a reason for that. I think a lot of teams are apprehensive to make trades, especially with a team that's in the middle of a rebuild. They aren't necessarily jumping at the opportunity to give a team more resources for the future. So the Mariners did go into this offseason thinking about moving some players. D. Gordon was a candidate. Malik Smith was a candidate. Domingo Santana was a candidate, but he ended up just getting cut. And D and Malik's haven't moved, so they'll be hanging out around the team. Got guys like Daniel Vogelbach. Maybe they can. He had such a torrid first half of the season, then really, really cooled off. But he posted a video of him taking a little live BP last week and looking real good doing it. Our big beef boy hero, Daniel Vogelbach, out here hitting dingers.
Yeah, he was. The beginning of the last year, it was like he was like on a big tear there at the beginning.
Yeah. He got absolutely hosed not getting to go to the home run derby.
Oh, yeah.
There was a lot of very unhappy Seattle sports fans that he didn't get to go to the home run derby. Yeah. And it ended up being, they say, you go to the home run derby and it ruins the second half of your season. Well, he didn't go to the home run derby and it ruined the second half of his season. So thanks a lot for that.
Yeah, I would have liked to see that. Maybe next year, though.
Yeah, it would be awesome, man. I think him in a home run derby would be a great deal of fun. Could you have imagined him and being in this, that like second round and hitting dingers with Guerrero Jr. and Pete Alonso.
Oh yeah.
You throw a third guy in there, just absolutely pumping shots. Would have been awesome.
Mhm.
That home run derby was a great deal of fun.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Still watch highlights of that every now and again.
Whenever I look at Vogelbach, it reminds me of Luke Voigt. He kind of seems like a bigger Luke Voigt even.
Dan's a big boy. And it's always becomes really evident, because when you look at him, you kind of get that body type resemblance to like Prince Fielder.
Yeah.
And the big difference that always stands out to me is Dan, like Fielder had that big, strong, massive swing that people were always saying he might break his bat across his back one day because he swings so hard. And Dan swings real hard, but the difference is it kind of looks like he doesn't finish his swing, like he has a very short backswing. So they look so similar, but they swing so differently, and that always stands out to me.
Oh yeah.
And it'll be interesting, he might get a great deal more DH time because they always say he is just an absolute defensive liability at first base. And now you've got Evan White, the first baseman of the future, who signed his contract extension this year. He's with the club for the next 6 years, and he is by all accounts is just a future Gold Glove, just repeating until he decides to one day put his glove away.
Yeah.
So he'll get the bulk of the first base time. So that'll be exciting that we don't have to worry about Dan taking too many reps at first base this year.
Right.
Other guys too, like Shed Long, who's a name you'll be familiar with. He came from the Yankees organization.
Yeah, Yankee legend.
Yep, Yankee legend Shed Long.
He was he was on the team for like a day or something. I think they traded for him, and they turned around and traded him.
And he's got a lot of fans here too. Everybody's real excited about him. He didn't get to play a whole lot. He came up to the big club and then went down hurt for a little bit. And one of the reasons the Mariners wanted to move D. Gordon so bad was because they wanted to open up second base for Shed.
Yeah.
And now it kind of looks like he might be more of a platoon outfielder. Because we got J.P. Crawford at short, and even then Shed doesn't really have the arm to play short anyway. Kyle Seager's going to be at third unless the Mariners can find some way to move him. If they do end up moving him, it won't be till after Donaldson signs. So.
Oh yeah. I think Shed Long was actually the one of the guys the Yankees got in return for Sonny Gray when they traded him.
50 Shades.
Yeah.
Yankees legend Sonny Gray.
Oh, yeah. I still get nightmares thinking about him in pinstripes.
I remember when he was on the A's too, man. When he was thrown for the A's, he gave all the AL West, but man, he gave Mariners hitters fits. He was a damn good pitcher when he was on the A's, and then it just absolutely bottomed out.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I guess the bright lights were too big for him. I don't know.
It happens every now and again. That is a fishbowl to play in there. I can't imagine. I think about it a lot because I'm a big Mariners fan, big Seahawks fan. Hockey, I'm a Canucks fan. I'm a fan of these, such small market share teams. I mean, Seahawks maybe not as much recently, being their recent successes, but I can't imagine being a fan of a team that is under lights that bright and is stared at so with everything they do is raked over with such a fine tooth comb.
Yeah.
Sounds stressful, man.
Yeah, I know. I definitely wouldn't want to. I probably wouldn't want to pitch there if I was actually ended up being good at baseball and like went all the way. I don't think I'd want to be there to be too much pressure.
It'd definitely be one of those things that it's that if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere mentality, and I really do feel like that's true, especially of playing for the Yankees.
Yeah. All right. So I actually gotta go. So start wrapping this up here. So.
All right.
Yeah, so make sure you check this pod out on every platform you can find podcasts. And we'll be continuing this 30 teams and 30 pods series over the off season. Hopefully get them all out before the season, before opening day, like as we go through spring training and everything. So yeah, that'll be continued on. And also obviously check the Scorecrow. The Scorecrow is going to be getting a lot more articles out here with baseball season approaching, and we'll be really getting after it. During the season, we're actually going to be doing daily DFS articles, so that'll be awesome. And also, live podcasts every morning on DFS. That'll be Johnny Black from the Scorecrow and Joey Ricotta. They'll be doing that. They'll be doing the DFS daily episodes. That'll be exciting to get going on that. And the YouTube. Hopefully, we get the YouTube going, the Scorecrow, and follow Scorecrow on Twitter. As get all the updates, all the articles, as we retweet all the articles on there. Football playoffs, we'll be getting recaps with that, so there'll be a lot of things coming out here as we move forward in this new year. So obviously new decade too, so it's gonna be a good one here. I think 2020 is gonna be a good year for the Scorecrow and this podcast. So yeah, definitely check everything out, and just a reminder, you can never have too much pod tar.
Follow me, Nick Tucker, on Twitter at NickTuck3, and follow Diamond Digest on Twitter at Diamond_Digest, and on Instagram at Diamond Digest Baseball. Thanks, Alex.
All right, yeah, thanks for coming on.